All right. Did you guys see that? I made that little intro video this week.
Who can live up to that? Who?
I know. I was so proud. So we've been using this new StreamYard platform for about 3 weeks. And I was like, that was really, really boring because you just push go live and then got all the people. So I was like, what can I do to liven that up a little bit? So I'm really proud.
What a show.
Yeah, good to see you guys. It's Friday.
Hello.
Yes, it is.
Happy Friday.
Merry Friday to all those who observe.
And so I'm feeling frame envy. So let me hold on. These are a little bit more bold.
Oh,
A little bit more bold.
Oh,
Yeah.
man, I can't pull
Monopoly
those.
Man.
Yeah, these are a little bit more bold, right?
The
So
Bond villain, like straight up stroke the white cat Bond villain level of, neat.
I think he looks like the Monopoly Man, especially without the hat.
yeah,
Monopoly.
Yeah, okay.
he had just the spectacle though.
Yeah. The monocle.
So
You
yeah,
guys
the
are
monocle.
so weird. Just did weird.
You be you.
So anyway, so good to see you guys.
appreciate
So the way, just to remind anybody who hasn't been tuning in, so many years ago, before I had all this gray hair, I was at SourceCon, and my favorite part of the week, every week at SourceCon, was SourceCon Live, and we would just get, and that was when Google Plus Hangouts on Air was a big thing. And so I would just invite basically anybody I had been interacting with that week who had written a blog post or whatever to get online, and we would just talk about things. And so so that's kind of the format. It's very casual. What we typically do, the room will be kind of seated with people who are pretty deep in talent acquisition, but then we'll bring somebody with a lot more in this situation, knowledge about one topic that we all think about. And this week, that is James, and we're talking about employer brand. So
I was told we were talking about Christmas Goose. What is going on?
Right.
I'm false pretenders.
Right. So anyway, but before we get started, let's kind of go around the room. My name's Jeremy Roberts. I am with Heiser Talent. You probably never heard of it because I just made that up not very long ago. But anyway, so we're a consulting firm that thinks about all things talent acquisition, and we're pretty excited to be here. So all right, now we'll go down. Heather, go ahead and introduce yourself.
As I look around the room, though, I have to wonder what year it is. Like, I think we were all in the same place, 10 years ago, I think, at a
Something like
SourceCon
that.
event.
Very possible.
A higher con event. So
The higher con, yeah.
It's pretty cool that people in this industry love to stay in it for as long as they do. So some people know me. I'm Heather Thomas. I'm now a global engagement customer manager over at iSIMS, and I've kind of run the gamut between being a practitioner working for third-party vendors and now at a big ATS. It's been a good career, fun.
That is awesome. And then a side note, I've worked with Heather before at the same organization. She's been a customer, and then I've worked with her at the same organization before. And so we got great synergy. Our brains kind of go completely opposite directions when we look at a problem. So it was always fun to work together. So anyway, go ahead, Randy.
I'm Randy Bailey. I'm going to be partnering with Jeremy and Heiser Talent, and we're getting started, trying to get some business.
It's awesome. Well, good deal. And
Great time to do it.
Randy, come on, your elevator pitch was really, that was like one floor. Let's pretend you're going 3 or 4 floors.
Penthouse, baby.
Yeah.
Come on.
Let's give it 3 or 4 floors.
So
go a little bit deeper.
Don't strain
My
you out.
claim to fame is I'm a SourceCon Grandmaster. I've won Talent Intelligence Leader of the Year. I love playing with data. I love using data to tell stories and help organizations be more data driven.
That was awesome.
That's
So that
where
was
was
a
that?
really
the
good
first
2 to 3. That was a really good 2 to 3 floor elevator pitch.
Jump.
So
I have an elevator pitch for Randy, though, too. He also led one of the most renowned AI non-biased studies back in the day, about 10 years ago. And it was pretty remarkable how you guys settled down to the right candidate and got the person hired. I remember that.
Yeah, it was a SourceCon challenge where it was human versus machine, and Randy actually beat the machine, which it would be interesting to redo that these days. But it was as scientifically done as you can. I mean, it was, what did we do? We submitted candidates to an organization and they selected their top. And then we saw kind of how the machines all did it, the different AI matching algorithms. And then Randy did it, right? And Randy beat the machines that time. So.
And got my own, I through networking got Hiring Solved to help me out. But yeah, just took a very data-driven approach to try and figure out how to solve the problem.
Yeah,
See,
no, it's super cool.
I know we made fun of Randy for the bad elevator pitch. I think he did it right. He let everybody else do the elevator pitch for him. And Randy,
you caught that.
I will hat tip that. That is glorious.
It's very, very smooth, very smooth. So James, we're all kind of in the ecosystem where we all think about employer brand, and we have all kind of had that responsibility in organizations that we're with. And in Heather's case, she advises companies a lot who are using her software, and I'm sure that dips into employer brand. But to get us started, since you're kind of on the forefront of this and you talk about it every day, how would you define employer brand? Let's just go ahead and put that out there. Well, first off, let's let you give your elevator pitch. I didn't do that.
No, that's all right.
So
that's right.
you do that, and then we'll start asking questions.
All right. I'm James Ellis. I run a little company called Employer Brand Labs. It's very little. It's about this size. It's me sized. It's a single person kind of situation. My thinking and my approach is that employer branding has been designed first and foremost for the massive companies in the world. And yeah, I don't care about them. I care about 500,000, 2,000 people companies who honestly, they don't have time to mess around. They don't want 4,000 slide decks. They do not want 4 trillion focus groups to tell them what they already know. They need to get to the point quickly to turn that brand thinking into strategy and action. And that's really what I do every day.
Just curious, and I'm sure I knew this at one point. Did you start in marketing or did you start in recruiting? Or tell us that kind of origin story.
I have never worked a rec. I like to put that right up front, and half your audience just went away. They just went, "Oh, this guy doesn't know anything." And I don't get that. But hey, how you do? Like, here's the thing. I love recruiters and what recruiters do. I can't do it. It's not my brain, and that's okay because y'all can't do what I do. And frankly, most of you would look what I do all day and go, "God, not for $1 million." And I get that. That's how it works. That's that synergy. I was born a marketing brain, but I've always been in this weird digital strategy, digital marketing space. So I've either been the most marketing person in the nerd team or the most nerdy person in the marketing team. So I've never really had a good kind of home until I found employer brand. So that's kind of why I've lived here so long. If it's an island of misfit toys, I've found my place to be.
Well, super cool. So I'm just going to throw a really big kind of broad question out there. So like when you go into an organization, you said your target is kind of 500 to 2,000.
Yep.
What is the kind of universal problem that you see? What is it what is it you kind of know you're going to always have to cover?
Yeah, it's honestly the same challenges everybody has, except without the benefit of, if you're a big old brand, you've got this, what I think of as a consumer brand halo. Like if you're Nike, you have the same problem attracting people, except you're Nike. So it's a little easier. You have something to rely on. You have some value. And Nike's a bad example because Nike is like one of the greatest marketing companies in the world. So they got the bones. They kind of got the stuff to kind of figure it out. Most companies who are 500,000 people companies, 2,000 people companies, they're growing, they're interesting. Like all the people who like 5 years ago were like, I got to get into a FANG. They've all left the FANG and they've gone to these 1,000 person SaaS companies you don't know unless you are in the mining industry or like own a business. Like they do this tight little niche thing, making lots of money, super successful, growing like crazy, but no one's ever heard of them. So they have no consumer brand halo. After that, it's the same thing everybody else complains about. I can't get people to pay attention to my recs. I can't get the right people to apply to my recs. My hiring managers and my recruiters don't talk to each other. They don't like each other very much. They seem, they want to work together. They think they're at the same purpose, but they seem to be very much at odds all the time. I'm terrified of my CFO because he keeps giving me the hairy eyeball that I'm spending more and more money every year and not bringing back the returns like they think I should be bringing. Any of this sound familiar? I bet it does. This is the same stuff you get everywhere. And the problem is that for the most part, recruiters and sourcers have been trained that the answer to all these problems is more recruiting and sourcing. More tech, more tools, more layers of stuff, more headcount, more. And I suggest, and I imagine we're going to have a fight about this, is that we found ourselves in a bit of a cul-de-sac. Employer brand and recruiting strategy is based on the idea that if you're attractive as an employer, you're going to win. Because 10, 15 years ago, that was a completely valid strategy. If you had a halfway decent career site, for God's sake, people went, oh, this doesn't suck. I'm going to tell somebody. I'm twice as likely to apply for this job. Today, find me a bad career site. It's hard. Everybody's got a good career site. Everybody runs their job posting through ChatGPT. Everybody's got a Canva account. Oh boy. So everybody looks attractive, which means they all look the same. And I'm suggesting that we have gone too far and over-optimized in the direction of looking good or being attractive. And we need to take a step back and say, how do we be different? And that is where the next generation of employer branding, recruitment marketing, recruiting thinking needs to live. How do we become more choosable? How do we become not how do I attract 1 million applicants, but how do I attract the 5 applicants, 3 of whom are going to kill no matter who we pick? That's where the win is.
Yeah, no, I think
quality
that's great.
over quantity. Huh?
What do you think about this, James? Brand is what employees, candidates, and past employees say about the company when no one from the company is in the room.
Yeah, that's a pretty common phrase. And it's not wrong. It's not my favorite approach to it because I think it's a little different. Ultimately, a brand is what you're promising. And there is a level of validation, authenticity, proof. Because if you're promising innovation and someone shows up and they get a 3-year-old Dell and there's like, this is innovation, you're like, wait, I was promised innovation. It's not really innovation. That's not your promise. So there is a reputation, which is really what that definition is explaining. That's a reputational aspect, which is a big part of a brand. But a brand, when you think of it as reputation, you think of it as a brand you can't change. It's like the weather, right? It just is. And I don't believe that. I think we have agency over this. We can shape, we can influence, we can determine what our brand needs to be. And I think when you say your brand is what people say about you, it means that, how do I want to put this? It means that there's good and bad, right? There's a very linear approach that there are good companies and bad companies. And Glassdoor has made a living kind of, leveraging that idea with that little score that says, oh, it's a good score, it's a bad score. I think every company is good for somebody. I think every company has something to offer someone. People are still applying for Goldman Sachs, despite what the news have told us, despite 100-hour work weeks, because some people go, yeah, I know, but there's a pile of money at the end of it, and I believe it, and that's what I want. Is it toxic?
Career trajectory or...
Yeah, like there's a clear value offering. I'm going to offer employees this. It's going to cost you your 20s and 30s, but in the end, you'll never see the inside of a coach cabin on the plane ever again. You will stop at first class forever and now and for always. That's the promise, and they make good on that promise every single day. If someone wants that, that's where you go. It's a fantastic place to work. If that's not what you want, there's a million other places. The thing is, do you want autonomy? Do you want money? Do you want support? Do you want a mission? Do you want time? What do you want? There is a company that offers it. And so I think if we take it away from it's what people say about you, gets away from the linearness to say, what is it you're really offering? Are you offering support? Netflix is a great company with a great employer brand, and they do great work. They offer high salaries, and it comes with the notion that everybody can get tapped on the shoulder and said, you're out. That's just the name of the game. So that's really what that is. So I think, and Alan knows what he's talking about, and I'm not disagreeing with Alan on a fundamental level. I believe that reputation, that idea is there. And I think there's an element of intentionality that we need to embrace. Otherwise, what the hell are we doing all day? We're just going, oh, we got to sell this widget. I can't change the widget. I think you can tell a story around the widget to make that widget attractive to the person who wants that widget. Like if you've read Rory Sutherland and Alchemy, which I highly recommend because it's freaking magical, and he's insane. He is legitimately insane. So if you watch his TED Talk or any of his podcasts, amazing. He talks about how when the
what's the name?
Rory Sutherland. He's British. He works at Ogilvy. He talks about there's proof. If you think the wine is more expensive, it tastes better to you. And people get really worked up about this. Like, oh, that's manipulation. It's like, no, it's not. It's just your brain is part of the conversation in how wine tastes. The shape of the bottle, the label on it influences how you perceived things. So you actually have the opportunity to change perception. So the goal is not to manipulate. The goal is to kind of say, how do we tell the story so the right person goes, oh, I've been looking for that all my life. Gimme, 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 because that's really what we want.
So James, quick question. I think a lot of people in TA, when they hear employer brand, right, immediately they just think advertising, like you said, the career sites. Can you help us all understand what are the other elements that actually make up all of employee brand?
Okay. We don't have that much time, but I'm going to keep it simple. First off, what you've described as recruitment marketing, which is an activation arm of an employer brand. An employer brand is, this is what we offer, and here's how we're bringing it to market. Who's here we want to talk to? So who's our audience? Where do they live? What do they need to hear? What are their other options? Understanding your talent, your competitive set, part of it. Once you establish an employer brand, which takes, competitive set, understanding what's being done, internal policies, future of the company, your mission, your reward structure, your day-to-day culture, blah, 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 blah. You boil it all down to, here's a thing we think is interesting about the company. And I'm going to take one little side note and say, it is not the sum totality of everything you offer. It is the thing you offer that's different from others that make people go, oh, it's not like that. It's like that. Ooh, I want that, right? Every car has 4 wheels. So none of the cars offer, hey, you should buy our car. We have 4 wheels. Except if you look at how companies advertise, they advertise, we offer benefits. We offer, health insurance, and we offer, we're a go get 'em, culture. Like that's every company. Like if I'm in an audience, I say, how many of people have heard or told the joke? It's different working here. We work really fast. 1 year here is like 7 years someplace else. And everybody goes, yeah, I do that. Like, yeah, do you understand that that's every company says that? So who are you comparing yourself to? I'm not exactly sure. The thing is, everybody sounds the same. Everybody talks about the same stuff. We got a great culture, whatever that means. We got some awards. Of course you do. Everybody does. We've got this. We've got that. We've got all this stuff. A brand says, of all those 100 things you can name that are great about your company, what's something that no one else can talk about? And that becomes the hook. And then that becomes the beginning of a story, in which case all the other 99 things kind of filter in. So that's the brand. Once you have it, yes, it's ads, but it's really about helping your team make better decisions. Because if you've got a team more than 2 people, you've got people working in different directions, and that's a challenge. A brand says, if this is our brand, these are our pillars, focus on talking about these things, which means you stare at Canva, you stare at LinkedIn and going, what do I talk about, right? Every recruiter knows the dread of, I have to post this job on LinkedIn and I don't know what to say. So what do they say? We're hiring, which is unfortunate because that's a waste of time. But if you know the brand, you can say, well, this is what we're offering, and this is the job. I can connect the dots, and suddenly I know what to say faster. It helps you make decisions quicker. So it is career site. It is job postings. It is how you present your ads. It is how you present your social media content. It's also how do you respond to Glassdoor posts. For example, I worked at a company where it was the brand was all about autonomy. We offered maximum autonomy. And invariably, every month or two, someone would leave a Glassdoor review that says, this place is crazy. It's chaotic. The inmates are running the asylum. Run away. I didn't even know who my boss was. And you're like, yeah, that's a flame war. That's a 1-star. I gotcha. My response was always the same. We offer maximum autonomy, which means we don't want to tell you what the rules are. We want you to tell us what the rules are. We hired you as an expert. We want you to bring that expertise to us, which means giving you lots of room. Not everybody likes that. We wish you the best of luck in the next place. Did I just turn a 1-star into a 5-star? No, but I just turned a 1-star into proof of the thing I'm trying to claim. So it's there. It is honestly, if you do it right, it's part of your consumer marketing because it's the people making the dang thing you're selling. That's a huge emotional palette that your marketing team could be leveraging. Your internal comms team, your culture team, your HR team, all those people should be building content that supports that brand, connects the dots to that brand. If you do it right, and this is hard, this is top level thinking. If you can get your investor relation team on board, okay, here's the secret about investor relations. They're trying to sell to institutional investors, and institutional investors don't buy for a day and a half. They're not day traders. They're trying to buy for years. What is the one thing that doesn't change over the course of a year in a company? The people. They are effectively making investment decisions based on the people. And here you are. And this is where, Shonda Zilich calls her employer brand a people brand. And I think when you think in terms of it as a people brand, it radically rechanges the math on what you can do with it and who it supports. And that is where we need to head. And you asked a simple question, and I went on for like 20 minutes. And I told you I take all the time in the world. I will all I do is talk about this stuff. I'm a professional talk about this stuff guy.
That's awesome. No, okay. So there are a couple of things. Employer value proposition.
Yeah.
What is that?
And
kind of give a really short kind of summary of your thoughts on that. I'm going to throw that short part out there.
I know. I heard it. It got in there somehow. Everybody knows the EVP is a 120 slide deck. Next question. Oh, no, wait, that's not useful. That's not helpful at all. Especially when that 120 slide deck has 3 slides in it that actually have the brand. The brand structure, an EVP is usually, I mean, honestly, an EVP can be anything. It can be move fast and break things. Let's be fair. Whether or not Facebook invented that and invested in that and defined it, it became its employer brand. That is why people joined it. It's what they offered. It could be a classic brand with 4 pillars. Nothing wrong with that. It could be anything. But the goal is to say, is this the thing that says, this is what we offer that's different? And how are we supporting this idea? That's your EVP. So it can be very simple. The other thing I want to add to that is, it's also not public. Very, very, very few employer brands, EVPs, are public. So for example,
just kind of guiding principles for when you create some content.
They're in the back door. Yeah, they're in the back drawer saying this is what our North Star is. You can talk about it a million different ways. What I love is when people say, this is my favorite EVP. I'm like, that's not an EVP. That's a tagline. Your EVP was what informed the decision of that tagline. So most EVPs are silent, but they are informative.
I love that. Okay, so we will definitely pull that clip.
So
wait, we're recording this?
No, that was really good. Okay, now,
silent or is
okay,
it? Wait, just a question about that real quick.
Yeah.
Is it silent or is it also going to be in biography? I think about like when I was at the big retailer, the Sam Walton's biography had all sorts his 10 pillars.
Yep. Yeah. Amazon has the 20 the credos or whatever the heck they list, that 2-page memo of everything we believe or whatever. Like a lot of that stuff is there. It's insanely informative. It tells you so here's the other piece of it. People very often equate EVP or brand and culture, and they are not the same. The culture is, how do we behave? And more accurately, how do we behave when there's neither a rule nor an authority in the room to tell us otherwise? So we've all been in those companies where the CEO says, from now on, there will be no something. Sexual harassment. That's a fun one, right? And everybody goes, good luck enforcing that. And are you still sexually harassing people? Yes. Congratulations. That's your culture. I know. That's not going to make the clip. I know that for sure. Anyway, your culture is how you behave. Your brand is this layer on top of it, which understands the culture and says, look, this is our experience. This is how our day-to-day goes. We're a place where we micromanage. We're a place where we give you autonomy. We're a place where we support each other. We're a place where every Thursday morning we come together and sing Kumbaya by the fire. All those things are the culture. That is telling you the experience of what it's like. And when I think of how you create an employer brand that's different, because that kind of goes back to my first point, you have to understand difference in terms of what the candidate wants. And what the candidate wants to know about a job is, what do we do in it? How do we do it? What do I get when I do it? What is the mission? What is the experience? What is the reward? There are plenty of places that want to make that real complicated, but in the end, this is what human beings want to know. What are we doing? How do we do it? What do we get when we do it? The how do we do it is like 90% culture. How we do it is that thing. So it's very much influencing it, but it doesn't have to be it. Now, to your point, an employer brand comes from all the stuff. It comes from the employee handbook. It comes from investor relations material. It comes from the memos that the CEO writes to their employees, right? It comes from learned experience. It comes from policies. It comes from all sorts of stuff. So to say it's that thing, it's not very, sometimes it is, but that's not true universally. It is the expression of what we offer. And then the best part is when you have like a Sam Walton in my guidelines of how I do things, that is proof. And that is the piece we have not yet talked about, which we should. And that is, an employer brand is just a nice little claim. Like when Exxon says how much they care about the environment. Yeah, good luck there. I buy that completely. Proof is where it's at. Now, I'm going to speak to my recruiting friends for 1 second. Heather, you're going to get to a second. Recruiters hate it when I say this, but it's true. And deep down, they know it. No one believes a recruiter. Everybody gets accused of being a used car salesperson. And it's unfortunate because recruiters are incredibly valuable and grow companies. But they have minimal credibility in the market. So the employer brand, when it's strong, has deep credibility, has deep levels of proof. It has quotes, it has testimonials, it has stories, it has videos, it has the policies that say this is how we make sure this happens. It has the quotes from the CEOs. It's all about a game of proof. Anybody can claim they're innovative or supportive or autonomous. It's a question of how do you prove it? I'm going to take a breath.
That's good. Heather, go ahead.
I'm going to ask the question that nobody ever likes to ask,
Uh-oh.
right?
I'm
Especially
6'1". This is natural. I do this myself.
Why? The question is why?
No, that should be just the
Why
question.
do
Just
we,
why?
that's right. Why do we as companies have to do this? And I'm going to throw my theory out there too, James, and let you comment, because either it's
Go.
yes or no, and then I know you'll take it down the rabbit hole.
We'll say.
2025, consumers and the employee market are more sophisticated than
Yeah.
they were 10 years ago.
Unquestionably.
Okay, so if the answer is yes, are organizations acknowledging that they're more sophisticated? Is that why we need to do it, or is there another why? And then how can anyone in a talent acquisition seat today really influence their organization to embrace the fact that employees are more sophisticated?
Yeah. I think the level of sophistication is an interesting input, but it's not the whole Megillah. Like, for a lot of it is this sense of sophistication is that they're suddenly given the information they were demanding 40 years ago. Like, I'm old enough, and don't let the baby face fool you, very old. I remember sending a paper resume in an envelope with a stamp on it to a P.O. box to a company I'd never heard of because they put something in the newspaper on a Sunday.
Do you remember you would
that
have to
sounds
go
insane.
print it on ivory?
Nice paper.
at
You had to get the
Kinko's?
good paper. Yeah. You had to. Oh yeah. And I was kind of a paper aficionado. I'm like, oh, what can I do that's different? As if people would say,
Feel.
look at this paper. I'm hiring this dude right now. Like, I'm an idiot. The thing is, I'm old enough to remember that. And that was a time in which you applied for jobs knowing nothing and next to nothing about the company. And today, what we've seen over the social media revolution is not, hey, I get to talk to people and Mr. Beast is a thing. The social media revolution is I get to poke holes in the wall that companies build around themselves to protect themselves. I get to hear what's really going on inside. I get to hear the straight dope. I get to hear Glassdoor reviews of what people are really saying. I get to see more, and that allows me, because ultimately every candidate wants to make a fairly informed decision. They want to know, what the heck am I getting myself into? And unfortunately, because employer brand and recruiting is very much tied to HR and internal comms, it's a game of protection. Very often what we think of as communicating is really a press release that we've put dear person on the top of. That doesn't serve. That's not useful information. We all know that's polished and spun like a top, right? We all know that's a bunch of garbage. Why employer brand has to happen is because if I were to say, this is a room of 100 people, I say, how many people promise that they care about their employees, raise their hand, and they put that on their career site? You think like 80% of those people are going to raise their hand? Of course. If I said, how many people promise that their mission is to disrupt or change a blah, 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 are 80% of people going to raise their hand? Of course they are. The thing no one wants to embrace because they're too, you can't read the label from inside the pickle jar. Everybody's in their own pickle jar. They don't realize that the thing they go to market with of this is why you should work here is the exact same thing 4,000 other recruiters in your local neighborhood are saying right now, right? It is the exact same thing. Employer brand is about how do we leverage our unique differentiated value so that we aren't one of many and we aren't competing. We want to stand out, right? SpaceX stands out because it's the only company going to Mars. And if you want to go to Mars, where else are you going to work? It's SpaceX. And there are plenty of companies that have differentiated values that are crystal clear. And is that our employer brand? That's the beginning of it. But the truth is most companies sound exactly the same, regardless of industry, regardless of size. They're all trying to do. We've all been in those rooms where someone said, I don't know what to do. What does Google do? And just copies what Google does. That's not being you. That's being fake Google. And I don't want to work at fake Google. I want to know what I'm getting into. So the game is about differentiating. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No. Okay, so you've mentioned something in the past, balancing attraction and repulsion.
Aha.
Tell us what that means. So people who have seen your articles or heard you speak, what do you mean by that?
And look, I'm not going to be the one who carries that banner. That's going to be Brian Adams and Charlotte. I'm blanking on Charlotte's last name. I apologize. Go check out Give and Get. It's a really good book about this idea of repulsion and attraction. I don't think in terms of attraction repulsion. I think of 1 million potential hires, there is a teeny tiny audience that you really want. And when I say you, I mean your hiring managers more accurately. They are the people who are going to change the game. They are the people who aren't just A players. They are the people who add value in your kind of culture, in your kind of ecosystem, in your kind of work experience. And they want to be rewarded the way you reward people. They want to align with the mission that you've got. They are a teeny slice of the million potential hires. Recruitment and recruitment marketing thinks, I got to get the attention of 1 million people. So what do? You say bland, boring stuff that appeals to 1 million people. That doesn't serve. If you only spoke to the 20 or 40, 50 people who want that thing, it's easier. That's the game. You're not like saying, how do I say shit that's going to really piss these people off, these 900,900, whatever it is. I can't do math. But it's really about, how do I speak so clearly to that target that's right over there that everybody else goes, I do not care. That's the win. That's how it is. So it's not accurate repulsion. It's just simply, how do I talk so specifically that only the people I want and who want me will go, that's what I want.
But isn't that sourcing versus branding?
It sure is. And that's why I wish employer branders and sourcers would hold hands and do some dang work together.
Look, this is okay. So I this has been bothering me lately. If you, and we can get into personal brand and employer brand in a minute, but one of the things that is fascinating to me is we've started to kind of elevate these people who have built these influencer networks, right? And you can have 400,000 TikTok and Instagram followers who follow you because you're a recruiter.
Yeah.
Okay. But
no, because you're interesting.
Because you're interesting as a recruiter, right?
Leave that part out. That's really crucial.
But my thing is like, okay, but I've never just gone after the general public. I've always needed to find, for example, someone in their 5th year at a Big 4 firm who worked in assurance, who is now wanting to be a controller. That's who I need. How many of those do you have in your 400,000 following, right? And then when you think about the general public, and there are 200 million people to recruit from, professionally speaking, and how many of your 400,000 fit the demographic you actually need, right? So most of these networks say, you can get a brand deal and you can make a couple $1,000s by driving through Sonic or whatever you do. But how valuable is that for recruiting? You know?
But Jeremy, wait. In recruiting, generally, if you're going to be focusing on an area, you're going to be a subject matter expert in that area. You wish. Right. But I don't want to have a recruiter that's going to be the all things to all people for every role. If they're talking about Big 4, I want to have somebody that's really embedded in that area.
Yes.
There's somebody at Walmart that he would literally post jobs like you or I might post for sourcing roles to our community. That he would post it to the ad sales business. Great. Somebody, if you're looking for somebody in ad sales, he is on the market. So please reach out. Reach out to me and I'm happy to make the connection. But he was that embedded in his.
And we accused him of not having an elevator pitch. Listen to this man sell on the fly. He's a beast.
But in the ad sales business, which is a really niche area, but he would he was that well embedded. That's who I want. I don't care about an influencer that has 400,000. The 100 people or 200 people that he has, that's what I want in recruiting.
Yeah. You're talking about the difference between a Super Bowl commercial ad model and a Facebook ad model. And the truth is we have been influenced and shipped this idea that we need Super Bowl ads all the dang time to do this job. Look, up until 10 years ago, the concept of branding wasn't even much of a thing. It was all just marketing is advertising. You just post ads and that's how you market. That's how you brand. And it's only in the last decade or two that you've gone, okay, hold on. Now that we can niche down, now that we can target audiences in the right way, now that we can identify people with focused followings, people who only talk to accountants, who are recruiters who only talk to accountants, those people exist and you should be investing in that when you need it. It's just a particular channel. That's what's really happening is we've gone from a world where, again, old. So I remember when there were only 3 and then 4 TV channels, and that's if you wanted people to know about you, that's where you advertised. And now there's infinite channels because every TikTok user is a channel, every Instagram user is a channel, every LinkedIn channel is a channel. There's so many ways to do that. So picking your spot is 100% right. Most of the people who have 400,000 views are not about how do I find a target audience? They're talking to a wider audience because that is how places like TikTok and those channels, that's how they monetize. The more clicks, the more views, the more money they make. So you talk about how finding a job is hard because everybody's trying to find a job and everybody relates and it's a nice wide thing. That is not the same person who say, hey, can you help me find the big four, fifth year out of school, whatever it is, like that target audience? No, you find the recruiter who does nothing but talk about the ins and outs and the subtleties of what it means to work in a big four. And look, if you put a gun to my head and tell me what's the difference between each of the big four, I couldn't do it to you. I just couldn't tell you anything. They could. The level of nuance and subtlety and difference, to them, you could drive trucks through the difference between these companies. From my point of view, I can't. That is what's happening there is proof. What's happening here is credibility because they can speak to their audience. It's such a, I get you. I get that what your world is. I get the difference between a KPMG and a PMG or whatever it is. Like I'm not screwing this up. PricewaterhouseCoopers. I know what that is. PwC and a KPMG. They know the difference line by line. They listen to those people. The people who follow them are people who care about those differences. No, I'm not an incredible speaker. I'm just high on caffeine and I love what I do. But thank you. That was very sweet of you to say. So the truth is these influencer networks are channels you should use, but going all the way back to the original point, as a good sourcer, you are generally really good at targeting. And I find that most sourcers are better at targeting than communicating. Now, am I painting with a broad brush? Yes. Am I stepping on toes? I apologize. Heather's rolling her eyes. I get it. Again, it's not my world. I think what usually happens is most recruiters who source and most sourcers, not the top people we are thinking about, like, look, Brian Fink's a freaking genius. Like Shally knows what he's doing. Like there are sourcers, like there are wizard hat level sourcers who we know they don't do this. But most people, they're just out there grinding. It's about targeting. And then once they find the target, throw them the message. And we've all been told you have to personalize the message, which is why every one of my emails that I get on InMail is all about, hey, James, I've seen your podcast. No, that's not what they do. They say the same damn thing every time. The problem is personalization means understanding. It's not about, hey, Bob, hey, Susan. It's I see you. And I think this is where things like ChatGPT and AI can really level everybody up because you can find a profile on LinkedIn that says, this is the woman. This is a must have. So what do? Hey, Susan, I think you're amazing. Blah, 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 blah. Susan gets that email every day. Grab that LinkedIn profile, save as PDF, throw it into ChatGPT and say, ChatGPT, you're my best buddy. We like to go on picnics together. I want to talk to this person about this job. Can you give me 5 talking points or 5 subject lines or 5 ways that show that I understand what she cares about in a job and that this job might serve it? How many sourcers and recruiters are doing that? Like,
let's use this
much.
Let's use this to kind of pivot to technology, right?
Great.
You can't have a hangout without bringing up AI, right? So what I always think of employer brand, it's not necessarily technology driven, it's more
it's agnostic.
But it's understanding your organization and agreeing on the principles, and then you plug that into all the technology.
Yeah, you use whatever technology is available to you, but it is not tech stack specific.
Perfect. Okay, so what I guess if we were to think about tools, like, is there a technology that's helpful in building employer brand or assessing employer brand? Kind of talk on that for a minute.
So I like to joke that, and this is, again, how many times am I talking my age? I got a problem here. I got to talk to a therapist about that. Anyway, I've seen Star Wars about 400 trillion times, just like many of you have. I know Heather has. Don't ask me why I know that. And I'm a big believer that most employer branders build their own lightsaber. That is, their idea of how you craft an employer brand is specific to them. There are general things.
By the way, my 18-year-old, for his senior trip, he wanted to go to Disney, and we built our own lightsabers.
Nice,
so
nice.
Keep going.
I won't ask what color. We won't get
so yeah, that really landed. Good analogy. So
I do it. I do what I do. But every employer brander does it a little different. They leverage different pieces of data. They have different processes. My models, I try to publish my models. Things like mission, experience, reward, and then specific, attractive, different, and real. Those things I try to keep them out in the world so people can go, oh, that's a different way of doing it, because I think that's how I want everybody to kind of apply good thinking to however they do it. Agencies do it one way, in-house consultants do it one way, there are a lot of different ways to do it. None of them are tech specific. I have fallen in love in not quite in a her way, but definitely very close with ChatGPT and Claude and some of the other AI tools that I have access to. And it's not that they do my thinking for me. It's that what they do is they do a really good job turning mass levels of unstructured, random ass data points into focal areas. So I can say, rather than say, let me take a step back. employer branders, when people think about employer brand, they usually think about 42 focus groups. And the purpose of those focus groups is to socialize what the brand is going to be. What they want to hear is objections to this idea, not so they can say, oh crap, we screwed up the idea, but to say, what are we going to have to overcome when we sell this idea upstairs? That is the purpose of most focus groups. And I find those to be silly. I think that's about selling to the CEO more than anything else. And we could do a whole hour on my thinking around that. I think a focus group should be, I want to hear from you. What's your situation? Not to ask, what do you like about working there? Because the answer is the same. I like the people. I don't care. It's not useful to me. But I want to get into your challenges. What's the day-to-day look like? How is it different? How is the experience? How did it differ from another company? How does it differ from your dream, place of work, whatever? I want to get into that. I want to scrape your employee manual because the policies shape the culture. I want to see your culture deck. I want to see your last 3 engagement surveys, all the raw text. I want to see if you can get every employee to open up their pocket supercomputer and talk into a voice memo for 5 minutes about what makes this company different, and then send me the voice memo and I scrape it and dump it in. I'm going to get raw text. I'm going to get real language. I'm going to get clear points of view.
That's
no
huge.
bullshit like that. This is AI can leverage employer brand by seeing a bigger picture. Way faster. By the way, I think I invented that model.
Way better. That's way better than an employee survey with 5 options to answer.
You have to type and you're like, who's going to hear this? And oh God, I got a suck time boss.
Yeah.
And, okay, here's what you to say.
And it removes the bias. Like the things that you don't want to say are there because that's reality.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really good.
The best employer brands are not describing the totality of reality, but they're aware of the totality of reality. They understand that at that team over there, everybody kind of hates their life. And that one team over there is super innovative and everybody's really jealous of them. And over there's that one golden person who everybody, it accepts those things as real. And it doesn't say, where's my whitewash? I'm going to paint over everything. It says, okay, first off, it's a job. The reason they pay us is because no one would show up if they didn't. So therefore, all jobs kind of suck on some level. And employer brands that say, this is the parts that suck, great, do that. That makes your credibility level go way up. But it should also say, look, for people who want this is the great place to work. For people who want to give their 20s go and you get a pile of money and status and a career path, Goldman is like a great place to work, no matter what the Wall Street Journal says, right? Every place has something that they can offer someone. It's just a matter of connecting that dots. And so for technology and employer brand, it's about how do you access more data and how do you not go blind having to read 4 trillion employer engagement surveys? That's where technology can really serve.
So I have another question about technology then. And if I'm completely take you off the wrong path, James, you get to say nope and you get to answer any way that you want.
All right, that sounds fair. I have a microphone.
That's right. The trend is, right, at the large enterprise company size globally, the trend is to create a hiring experience with technology that's like shopping, right? It's like shopping for jobs.
Yeah.
I'm curious, technology-wise, how are smaller companies competing against that? Does employee brand also tap into candidate experience? And what are the pillars to that for people to focus on?
So I'm gonna start with the first part of it. I think most of recruiting took the wrong lesson from Amazon, and they took the lesson of one click is good, one click buy, which Amazon patented. You got to remember 20 years ago when this started, mind blowing stuff, right? This is amazing stuff. But that isn't why Amazon became Amazon. Amazon became Amazon because of the reviews next to every product. That is what made Amazon better, because suddenly you invested in credibility at every single product level. You knew what you were buying. You got a sense of, I feel confident that this bag is going to fit, that these shoes are going to run a little big, that this book is going to be about this, that the book is appropriate for a 10-year-old. Right? That's what we want, not the press release garbage they stick on the description, actual feedback and understanding. The fact that they made the one-click work, that's just how you activate it. But the reason Amazon is because of reviews. We took the idea that speed and easy one-click is the win, and the answer is wrong. The answer is, how do you provide more information about what that job is really about? What is really going on? What does your boss really like? Why don't we post the boss's or hiring manager's LinkedIn profile on every single job? I do not understand the problem here. I don't care what HR says, they're wrong. Yeah, I said it. Anyway, that is what you're looking for. Because if you look at the hiring manager, you go, okay, I get a sense of what this person cares about, what they want. I understand what I'm getting into, which is the crux of all employer branding, which is the crux of all recruiting. I understand, and expectations are set and met. Candidate journey. So if you think of employer brand as all the stuff you're putting out in the world, your ads and your social and your job posting, all this stuff, think of the candidate journey as a ramp. And what happens is at the very beginning with the tools, and let's be brutally honest with the tools out there, where any candidate can apply for 3,000 jobs just by pumping their elbow on a keyboard, right? It doesn't take much. It doesn't, it's really easy. They don't know where they're applying these days. They're just pounding it out to everyone and see law of big numbers who shows up. As they engage with this process, the farther they go along through the candidate journey, the more they lean into this process. The more they go, okay, hold on. I'm getting an interview with who? I'm doing what? Give me more information. That's when they start to read. And that's when they start to watch your videos. And that's when they start to learn more about you. And the farther along in your journey, the information gets better because they're more interested in that information, right? If you tell me that Selsun Blue, makes your hair shinier, how useful is that information to me? It just goes right over my head. I don't care. That's how most candidates see most of our employer branding and recruitment marketing. It's not until I have hair, they go, okay, hold on, what's a good shampoo? It's not until they hit a candidate journey and they start to have those conversations, they go, okay, what's really going on? And that's when they dive deep in your Glassdoor scores. That's when they dive deep in your videos. That's when they dive deep. And the farther they go, the more invested and leaning in they are. So the conversation they have with the hiring manager at the very end, every syllable is critical. One bad, I just checked my phone in the middle of a conversation, that's the death knell, because they go, oh, it's your way. Oh, you're like that. Oh, I don't want to work here. Had they done that the first interview, like, yeah, everybody checks their phone. So as you go, it ramps up in terms of the level of credibility you need and the level of intensity of focus that is being applied to it. That's how I kind of connect the dot between employer brand thinking and candidate journey process.
Yep. No, that's great. So we got about 2 minutes left. Does anyone have any final questions? Anybody have any final questions or comments for James? Otherwise, I'm gonna let him give his exiting wisdom.
I have that.
What would you say talent acquisition teams should be thinking about in 2025 when it comes to employer brand? Kind of give it everything going on in the market. Teams are lean. Nobody knows what AI is going to do. We're pretty much everybody's dealing with strange press, if not bad press. I think, companies are not hiring as much as they should. Teams are stretched thin.
Yep. So
what would you say everybody needs to be thinking through?
I really hope this is the year where we stop thinking as technology first to solve our problems, but technology as an enabler of the solution. And I think the solution is more on a talent strategy level. It's about, who do I want to appeal to? What is going to appeal to them? What am I going to say that connects those dots? How do I put it out in the world so that the right people hear it? That is strategy thinking. In fact, I'm going to take it a bigger step further back. Strategy ultimately is, what are you going to do differently in the world to win? Like, if you want a definition of strategy, I think that's as close as you're going to get. And you can apply that to warfare and business strategy and how you're going to attract that right candidate. What are you going to do different? Because the world is very good at making clones at what is good. Your job is to figure out, how are you different? That is a winning strategy. Now, once you know that, it answers your questions of what should my tech stack be? It answers your question of what should my headcount be? It answers your question of what should my conversation points be? It answers your question of where does my employer brand go? It is foundational. And it is so crucial. And I look around and I look at most companies, say they have a talent strategy, and I ask for them to write it down. They look at me like a dog being shown a card trick. We're just going to get lots of applicants. That's our talent strategy. That is not a strategy. We're just going to buy more technology. That's not a strategy. We're just going to be the number one employer. That's not a strategy. That's a goal. That's a hope. That's a dream. That is not a strategy. This is the year I hope everybody starts to take talent strategy seriously. Not in I need a big 17-page memo that everybody's got to sign off on, but simply, what are we going to do different to win? And if everybody gets their head around that, I think we're all better. Not just because. And
what does winning look like?
What does winning look like? How do we do it? It's like an onion that opens up all sorts of different ways. But I think until you answer that, we are just all using the same tools in the same way, in the same approaches, talking to the same people over and over again. I mean, I pity the poor people on LinkedIn who are just getting deluged with the same requests and the same people from the same companies. And I mean, I've gotten pitches from 2 different recruiters at the same company. My God, what the heck is going on? And so no wonder that candidates and talent are like, how do I stay away from LinkedIn? How do I shunt myself off from this madness? The second you start to do something different, people notice, they show up, and your job gets easier.
And by the way, James knows all the recruiters he would want to work with. So that's a wasted in mail anyway, right? But you know, read the room, people.
Yeah.
But all right.
Yeah.
No,
read the room, people could be the banner on every spam or new business development person ever.
Exactly.
It's like, Paulie, read the room. Come on.
Yeah. So anyway, I thank you all for being here. Happy Friday to everybody watching, and thank you guys for joining. This was fun. James, I knew you would bring the energy. You know, historical, everybody. It was probably 2016 or 17 that Heather said, "Hey, I've gotten to know this guy, James Ellis. We need to have him speak at Higher Conf," because the organization we were at organized Higher Conf. And so,
I talked about robots. What was up with that? That was a weird, like,
right?
Can you talk about this thing? Like, oh yeah, sure. What the heck?
Yeah, no. So it was great, but yeah. So this is the first time we've all, you know, obviously we all connected and have interacted over the years, but this is the first time back in the room actually speaking with each other. So it was great to see you guys, and wish everybody a great weekend.
You too. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you all.
Bye, everybody.